NASCAR's biggest lawsuit just created Shane Van Gisbergen's escape route, and now Trackhouse Racing may have a problem they never saw coming, because while Michael Jordan and NASCAR were fighting over charters, money, and antitrust claims in federal court, SVG quietly became one of the most valuable drivers in the entire Cup Series. And the scary part for Trackhouse? The new charter settlement may have accidentally made it easier for him to leave. Let's talk about it. Back in 2025, NASCAR was heading toward total war. 23XI Racing, Row Motorsports, and several teams refused to sign NASCAR's new charter agreement. Then, Michael Jordan stepped in. The lawsuit exploded into a massive legal battle worth nearly $100 million, dragging NASCAR into federal court and putting the entire future of the charter system under the spotlight. After months of chaos, NASCAR finally settled, and buried inside that settlement was the detail changing everything right now. Permanent charters, no expiration dates, no yearly uncertainty, no risk of losing guaranteed race entries. That sounds like stability, but financially, it completely changed the value of NASCAR teams overnight. Suddenly, charters became forever assets worth tens of millions more than before. And when assets gain value that quickly, everything around them changes too, including driver contracts. Now here's where Shane Van Gisbergen enters the story. When SVG signed his Trackhouse extension in 2025, the entire NASCAR charter system still looked unstable. Most contracts in NASCAR include clauses tied to charter security, team value, sponsorship obligations, and long-term stability. That matters, because the version of Trackhouse SVG originally committed to may not even be the same version that exists today. And meanwhile, SVG's stock has absolutely exploded. Think about what's happened since he arrived in NASCAR. Chicago, Mexico City, Watkins Glen, road course domination, massive global attention. And now, he's no longer viewed as a novelty driver from supercars. He's viewed as a legitimate Cup Series threat. That changes everything, especially for teams like Hendrick Motorsports, because Hendrick has speed. They have championships, but they don't have a pure road course assassin like SVG. Kyle Larson is still elite, but he's spreading himself thin. Chase Elliott remains popular, but the consistency hasn't matched the hype lately. William Byron is strong, but quiet, and Alex Bowman's future, still uncertain. SVG fits a hole Hendrick doesn't currently have. And here's the uncomfortable part. Nobody inside NASCAR really wants to say out loud. There are people in the garage who are perfectly fine with SVG staying at Trackhouse, because Trackhouse still feels like a tier below Hendrick or Gibbs. At Trackhouse, SVG is dangerous. At Hendrick, SVG could become terrifying. That's the difference. Because suddenly you're not talking about a road course specialist anymore. You're talking about a championship-level driver getting elite equipment every single week. And thanks to the new charter system, those conversations become financially realistic. Permanent charters made NASCAR teams more valuable, more tradable, more flexible. And if a powerhouse organization ever wanted to make a move behind the scenes, there's now more money, leverage, and incentive than ever before. That's why this story matters. The lawsuit was supposed to end the chaos. Instead, it may have created NASCAR's next super team scenario, and SVG is sitting right in the middle of it. Now the big question becomes, if Shane Van Gisbergen eventually leaves the team that gave him his shot in NASCAR, is that betrayal? Or is it simply the move a future champion has to make? Because in motorsports, loyalty sounds great, but championships usually follow opportunity. And right now, opportunity may be knocking louder than ever. What if I told you Shane Van Gisbergen and Trackhouse Racing just made a decision that could either save their season or completely destroy it? Because this weekend at Watkins, Glen International SVG is doing something he has never done before in NASCAR. 3 races, 3 different cars, 3 different teams, 1 weekend. And honestly, the more you think about it, the crazier this looks. Because on paper, this should not be happening right now. Not with the pressure building, not with the playoffs getting closer, and definitely not with Trackhouse struggling the way they are. But somehow, somebody inside that organization looked at this weekend and said, yeah, let's triple it. And that's where this story gets really interesting, because this isn't just about racing more laps. This is a gamble, a massive one, and if it goes wrong, it could wreck one of the most important weekends of SVG's entire season. Let's break this down. SVG is entered in all 3 NASCAR National Series races at Watkins Glen Friday, Truck Series Saturday, Xfinity Series with JR Motorsports. Sunday, the Cup Series race, with Trackhouse 3 garages, 3 crews, 3 setups. 3 completely different race cars, and fans online are split right down the middle. Some people think this is genius, because let's be honest, Watkins Glen is basically SVG territory. Last time he raced a cup car there, he didn't just win, he dominated one by more than 10 seconds. Made elite, NASCAR drivers look completely helpless. So naturally, people are saying, why not go for all 3? Or a disaster waiting to happen. And here's why. Triple duty sounds exciting, but it destroys drivers mentally and physically. The Truck Series car drives differently, the Xfinity car drives differently, and the next-gen Cup car completely different from both. Every braking point changes, every setup changes, every handling characteristic changes. So for SVG, a driver still learning American stock cars this weekend becomes a crash course in experience. That's the gamble. More laps, more reps, more adaptation, more learning. And honestly, that part makes sense, because SVG himself has admitted he's still learning these cars. The braking, the tire wear, the way the rear rotates, you can't fully learn that in a simulator. You learn it through raw seat time, and Watkins Glen gives him all of it. But now comes the dangerous part. Imagine this. Saturday afternoon, SVG just finishes an exhausting Xfinity race. His neck hurts. His hands are sore. His brain is overloaded. Media obligations everywhere. Crew meetings, setup discussions. And then Sunday morning arrives, where he has to defend his Cup victory against drivers like Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, Denny Hamlin, drivers who absolutely circled Watkins Glen on their calendars after what SVG did to them last year. That's pressure, real pressure. And here's what makes this even riskier. Every single playoff point matters now. SVG is in a position where one road course win changes everything. A victory at Watkins Glen could instantly flip the narrative. Suddenly, he's not the struggling oval rookie anymore. He becomes a legitimate playoff threat. And with more road courses still ahead, that becomes terrifying for the rest of the field. But the downside, nobody at Trackhouse wants to talk about that publicly, because one mistake changes everything. One hard crash Friday night in the truck race, now your body is sore for Sunday. One bad incident Saturday in Xfinity, backup car, starting in the rear weekend, compromised before the Cup race even begins. And that's not exaggeration, that's NASCAR. Stuff happens fast. Even veteran drivers like Kyle Busch and Kyle Larson have admitted triple duty weekends are brutal. Not because of the racing, because of everything around it. The travel,